Ladies and gentlemen, we continue our work at Ukraine Crisis Media Center, and now I give the floor to Thomas Greminger, OSCE Secretary General. He will be talking about OSCE's role and activities in and around Ukraine. Mr. Greminger, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming. This is my second media briefing since I took the position of Secretary General. And as I said last week in Vienna, you, the media, you are an important ally in our work in public diplomacy. And believe me, our cooperation matters a lot to me, and I want to thank you all for all that you have already done to shine a spotlight on the OSCE's efforts to strengthen security and stability throughout Europe and beyond. As you have probably heard, I'm not quite new to the OSCE. I chaired the Permanent Council of the OSCE in 2014 when Switzerland was chairing the organization, and when you were addressing the crisis in and around Ukraine from the very outset. And I would also add, and I must say I'm quite proud of it, I negotiated as a chair of the Permanent Council the mandate of the Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. So I consider the SMM a bit as my baby. Now I'm back in a different capacity. As I said, I'm in my new job now for almost 2 months. And I chose to make my first trip as a Secretary General to Ukraine and to the OSCE field missions in this country, because I realize how much Ukraine still how much here still needs to be done to achieve peace and stability, and this in particular in the eastern part of the country. Yesterday, I met with President Poroshenko. I had a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Klimkin, and a meeting with the Minister for the Temporarily Occupied Territories, Chernish. These meetings were very constructive and very friendly. Today, I visited the office of the project coordinator in Ukraine. I had an interaction with humanitarian mine action stakeholders here in Ukraine, and this afternoon I'm visiting the premises of SMM, the Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. I was yesterday very much encouraged by the words of appreciation that I especially heard from President Poroshenko in terms of OSCE's response and engagement in and around Ukraine, and particularly his appreciation on the work of the Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. I'm happy that cooperation with the 2 OSCE missions in Ukraine, SMM and PCU, is highly valued here by Ukrainian authorities, and I can assure you that I will do my utmost to make sure that this continues to be the case also in the future. The fundamental principles our organization stands for are being challenged. Our common security framework, which has safeguarded the stability in our region for decades, is under threat. And while we face these challenges, there is a historic deficit in trust among the key stakeholders in this organization. Against the backdrop of this difficult situation, I, as a Secretary General, will strive to enhance OSCE's impact by focusing on three distinct areas. First, I want to ensure that this organization is fit for purpose. That means making sure that the organization is capable of delivering what is being expected from participating states. For instance, by enhancing the OSCE conflict mediation and facilitation capacities, we will reinvigorate our support for managing and resolving the protracted conflicts. Second, my second priority is to reinvigorate results-oriented dialogue. I want to position the OSCE in a way that makes it the platform for dialogue and for joint action on security matters in the Euro-Atlantic and Eurasian areas. And thirdly, I want to strengthen and leverage partnerships. My intention is to strengthen OSCE partnerships with relevant organizations, the European Union, the Eurasian Economic Union, NATO, CSTO, to name a few. I'm also committed to strengthening our cooperation with the United Nations to enhance OSCE capacities to prevent conflict and to resolve crises in our own region, crises in and around Ukraine included. However, rest assured, the OSCE will continue its efforts to facilitate de-escalation of the ongoing crisis in and around Ukraine. And I would like to take this opportunity to call on the sides to fully implement the Minsk agreements. And a full and sustainable ceasefire remains central to achieving stabilization of the situation on the ground. And let me close with a point that is particularly dear to me. After the tragic incident of the 23rd of April of this year, when a SMM member, the US paramedic Joseph Stone, came to death because a car, an SMM car in which he was sitting, hit a landmine. I think there is one lesson that we can take out of this incident and that we can learn from Joseph Stone's death. And that is the indiscriminate use of mines by the sides in the conflict endangers civilians, including, obviously, the monitors of the SMM. And therefore, I remind all sides that the use of mines is a breach of the Minsk agreements, of the Ottawa Convention, and very often it's also a serious violation of international humanitarian law. Thank you for your attention, and I'm now ready to take a few questions.
Good day, Yulia Khovanskaya, News of Donbass. We are all aware of the information about Putin's intention or desire that the UN mission is present in Donbass and provide assistance, meaning providing security or protection to the SMM staff. What is your stance on this? And aren't you having a thought that the UN presence may reduce the influence the SMM has within Donbass? Thank you.
Well, I'm not quite surprised that you raise this question. We are following discussions on a peacekeeping operation with interest. I also had a very interesting exchange of views with President Poroshenko on the different proposals for such a UN peacekeeping operation yesterday evening. It's clear such a mission would have to be agreed by the UN Security Council. Right now, when you look at the different proposals that are on the table, you realize that the gap is still wide. So it will certainly not be an easy process to reach a decision. The OSCE is ready to be consulted and to offer our expertise. After all, we have more than 3 years of experience of operating in this area. And it is also clear, such an operation ever be decided, a smart division of labor between a UN peacekeeping operation and the OSCE, that is in particular the SMM, will be decisive for its positive impact on the ground. But let me add that at the end of the day, there will be no way around a full implementation of the Minsk agreement.
Thank you. Second question, please.
Honcharuk Marina, reporters, correspondents. There's a number of unresolved military conflicts within the OSCE region, specifically the Karabakh conflict. Now we have a conflict in eastern Ukraine. How is the OSCE planning to react to these conflicts, and do you plan to visit the countries that are involved in this conflict, specifically the Azerbaijan and Armenia? Thank you.
Well, the second part of your question is the easy one. Yes, I do have an intention to visit these participating states that are affected by a protracted conflict as rapidly as possible. The reason why I'm standing here now is also, I think, testimony that for me, a contribution by the OSCE to the resolution of these conflicts is, for me, a top priority. Now, the OSCE can offer mediation and facilitation services to the resolution of these conflicts. And you have, for all protracted conflicts, you have different formats. There are well-established formats. Some of these formats give the OSCE a larger mediation and facilitation role. Some of the conflicts a bit less. The conflict that you alluded to is the format is based on the work of the Minsk co-chairs, as you know. And we, from the Secretariat, we do our utmost to support the co-chairs in their work. But I would also underscore that, again, at the end of the day, the OSCE is not capable of substituting lack of political will to resolve conflicts. So there needs to be a political will by the parties, and the OSCE can come in with its facilitation and mediation services. But it's not the OSCE that can make peace, unfortunately.
Thank you. And one more question.
Unionist agency, I would like to focus on peacekeeping mission, our attention one more time. You already mentioned that there are a few initiatives, clearly from Russian side, Ukrainian side, in order to deploy such mission. And you know that UN bodies, they, before sending any missions, they need to assess situation on the Donbass. But OSCE already have special monitoring mission who are monitoring every day what is going on there. And in your opinion, what kind of mission should be deployed there? If we look at the proposals from Ukraine, from Russia, they have differences that need to be agreed. How about the mandate of that mission? Do you think that this mission should be deployed throughout all occupied territory of Donbass, including a Russian-Ukrainian international recognized border? And in your opinion, what kind of equipment should they have in order to support peace and stability on the region, or to help this region to come back to peaceful life? Thank you.
Well, as I said before, the gap between the proposals is still wide. So at this point in time, I don't want to speculate about the mandate, about the equipment, etc. I think first diplomats in New York will have to sort out on the technical and then on the diplomatic level how such a mandate would eventually look like. But you're absolutely right, and this I think I also tried to refer to. The OSCE has a tremendous experience built up over the last 3.5 years in the region, and this experience must obviously be brought into the conceptualization of such a mission, and this is also a message that I've been giving to important interlocutors that have raised this issue with me in the last few days, and I will convey the same message to interlocutors in New York next week when I will attend the high-level segment of the UN General Assembly. I take one more.
Okay, dear colleagues, you are welcome.
Доброго дня, Кримські новини.
Good day, Crimea News. I would like to ask a question about Crimea. As we know, there isn't an OSCE mission in Crimea, and I was wondering what bodies are actually governing or looking into Crimean affairs, or how do I put it right, maybe oversee the compliance with human rights, say, in Crimea, and is this matter, which has been brought up long ago, I mean, OSCE in Crimea, the Russian Federation has been blocking for a while now, any actions to be undertaken in this direction? Thank you.
Well, basically, I mean, I can't say much on this question, except for that the mandate of the OSCE covers the entire area of the OSCE. So, in principle, if participating states wish so, and if sites permit, we can also deploy activities on Crimea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greminger.